3.
Hello, hoops heads. Hello, NBA aficionados. Hello, connoisseurs of both the basket and the ball. It's that time of week again. We are back here with the Double Dribble Show. I have returned. I'm Mitch Vomhoff. As by popular request, the man bun has also returned. Thank you to everyone supporting that. But my partner in crime, Jimmy Carlton, is unfortunately not with us today. Instead, I have brought on former illustrious guest, now fill-in co-host, Ian DeMars. Ian, how are you doing today?
Great, Mitch. Glad to be on here with you today.
Excellent, excellent. So glad we could have you here. We've got some actual breaking news that we will get to in a little bit. We'll recap some of the conference final series. Talk a little bit about the draft combine that you and I were speaking about before the show. That's all great. But we will start with, why don't we start with some headlines? First off, we've got a little bit of an international incident that occurred earlier this week. Thunder forward Enes Kanter was detained in Romania after attending some basketball clinics that he was hosting there, and had his passport revoked by his home country of Turkey on his birthday, I might add, which is
really on his birthday.
Yeah, it was one of those weird things where he posted this video on Twitter, saying from this Romanian airport, saying, "Hey, I'm being detained for political reasons." He's been outspoken about the president of Turkey, who is getting a lot of criticism. Kanter even called him today the new Hitler, which is, it's an
pretty
extreme,
bold statement.
It is a bold statement, that is for sure. But he is safe back in the United States.
Which is good. I mean, it's glad to see that everything's okay with him. I mean, he probably thought at first that maybe it's just a little birthday surprise that they're pulling over there, but
sir, you have to come back. You have to come back here with us.
Yeah.
No, it's not. It's not a cake.
But yeah,
We're
I mean, I'm glad to see that he's okay, that he's back in the States, and now he's looking to become a U.S. citizen. So
yeah, to avoid some other incidents like this, and in turbulent times, you might have to have that backup just in case.
Yeah, and that's definitely something that he needs to do moving forward, especially since he'll be playing in the NBA here. So
yeah, definitely. So best thoughts out to Enes Kanter. Certainly doing good things abroad, as well as bringing attention to some situations in his home country. Definitely hope everything works out well for him. We'll move on to a little bit of some rare breaking news. When you have a show once a week, breaking news is a little hard to come by, but we managed to finagle some this week in that Milwaukee Bucks GM John Hammond. I almost said John Henson. When he's not a GM. We'll talk about him later. But John Hammond has agreed to a 5-year deal to leave Milwaukee and join the Orlando Magic as their GM.
Yeah, it's definitely some breaking news. But you look at Hammond, it was probably the right time for him to leave if you think about it. I mean, you look at the way he's brought in Giannis, getting Jabari Parker, and now last year getting Brogdon and Thon Maker, along with getting Greg Monroe in free agency. It's definitely a big career move for him, getting all those signees and looking at the way they turned out this year, making the playoffs. So I think Orlando's hoping that he can do that within the next couple of years and hopefully get them back into the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. But I want to ask you, Ian, that Orlando roster is kind of a mess. There's a lot of weird kind of non-fitting parts. They don't have a lot of shooting. Some of the young players they've committed to are not great in that department or are awkward fits. Right. Do you think a guy like John Hammond is going to go into Orlando, and will he be able to sort that situation out?
I think he will. I mean, you look at they started doing a little bit of that last year, looking at when they had Serge Ibaka and Aaron Gordon. They're starting Aaron Gordon at the small forward, and he's not a small forward. Guy struggles shooting the ball. But when they traded Ibaka, you could tell that there are some signs that things are going to happen with them going into the future. And I feel like John Hammond knows the process that he needs to do to get things going, and that's why the thing that they need to do in the draft is get the shooting, which has been an issue for them.
Yeah, for sure, definitely. So, as a Bucks fan myself, I'll be a little sad. John Hammond will hold a special place in my heart for taking the shot on Giannis. Jabari Parker wasn't that great of a stretch because he was the number 2 pick in the draft, but trading for Chris Middleton really built the foundation of a team that I think is going to be hopefully contending in the next couple of years. I mean, the Bucks are definitely a team on the rise.
Yeah, absolutely.
We do have a little. I feel like we talk about retirements a lot. Unfortunately, on the show, we have another one after the Spurs playoff exit the other night against the Golden State Warriors. There has been some speculation that Manu Ginobili, who many consider one of the finest international players to ever play in the NBA, may be retiring. And he's 39 years old, the second oldest player in the NBA. It might be that time.
Yeah, it might be that time, but it's also might have been that time the past few years for Manu if you think about it.
That's true, but if this is it, he finished off his career strong. He had 21 points in Game 3, ended up with 15 to lead the team.
Yeah, and he got to start last night too.
Yeah, and started in Game 4.
So I feel like if you just look at the fact that he started, felt like the Spurs knew that the series was over, and they're like, this could be the end. Actually,
so we want to give him this moment.
Give him this time, make this game all about him, and that's basically
sure.
what the game was for him.
For sure.
Especially the ovation that happened at the end of the game.
Yeah, that was a really cool moment. And speaking of the playoffs, I do want to now it seems about as good a time as any to introduce our question of the week. And that question of the week, if you go to Brew Sports on Twitter, you can vote in our question of the week. You can leave your comment below the video here. But we want to know what you think about this year's playoffs. There's been a lot of talk about the playoffs being boring or there not being any suspense or intrigue because you just have two powerhouses tearing through their respective conferences. And I, for one, kind of enjoy just watching really dominant, really skillful basketball. But I understand that a lot of people might be bored with blowouts and no close games. So we want to hear what you guys think about this year's playoffs and if a powerhouse matchup in the finals between the Warriors and the Cavaliers might be enough to redeem what otherwise has kind of been a slow, to be fair, not very full of intrigue playoffs.
I mean, what's your take on it? Would you say would you agree with your question? Or it's kind of
yeah, it's tough, and I will freely admit that I'm not kind of the typical NBA fan, and that I'm probably watching for different reasons than your average sports consumer might. And that being said, there is something that I really enjoy about even when the Warriors are dominating. If they are clicking in the way that that on fire Warriors team is, it's just fun to watch, and it's not something I'd watch every night, certainly. And there comes a point where I say it's a West Coast game, and the Warriors are up by 30. I do have to go to bed.
It's midnight. I got to work at 8.
Yeah, exactly. But, I just keep thinking about, we might be watching one of those, really dominant teams that people will look back on and say, oh, those Warriors from 2015 to 2017, and beyond, were just dominant. And, you'll talk about them maybe the same way they talk about Jordan's Bulls in the 90s.
Yeah.
And from that perspective alone, kind of from the historical perspective, I think they're super compelling to watch. And I do think if we do end up with another great final series, then that will pay off a lot of this kind of playoff malaise.
Yeah, and despite the fact that these playoffs have been a little bit boring, you do have to look at that last year there were even more blowouts if you think about it. I think from what I heard earlier this week, they said that last year they had, I think, close to 30 double-figure wins in the playoffs, and this year hasn't been that close to it yet. So, I mean, who knows what could happen within the rest of the Cavs series and the finals.
Yeah, that's true. And actually, why don't we go ahead and get into talking about those final series a little bit right now. First of all, we'll just kind of recap the series that's been completed. We mentioned earlier.
Wait, there's a series that's been completed?
Ian's so bored with these playoffs. He's not even. He doesn't even know what's going. He's not even paying attention. He's I don't know, just wake me up when the finals happen. But as we referenced earlier, the Warriors did complete their 4-game sweep of the San Antonio Spurs. The other night, didn't necessarily really have to break a sweat outside of the opening game when they started out down pretty significantly before Kawhi Leonard got injured, and Warriors obviously stormed back and won. So obviously, the Warriors, I just got done saying the Warriors are this dominant team, right? But Ian, looking at some of the injuries that occurred in the playoffs for the Spurs, Kawhi Leonard and Tony Parker most notably, were those injuries that might have swung this series? If those two players were healthy and playing, I don't want to go ahead and say that the Spurs would win, but is this a more competitive series or are the Warriors just too dominant?
This would have been a way more competitive series. In fact, the Spurs should have won game 1 if it wasn't for the Kawhi Leonard injury. They were up 23 points when he left the game. And the fact that they blew that big of a lead just tells you how important that he is. And then, of course, losing Tony Parker, a vet like him, it's very important. So you look at if at least one of those guys is playing, I feel like the Spurs win at least one of the games in the series, maybe 2, more likely 2 if both are healthy. But the fact that both got injured the way they did just tells that the series wasn't going to last that long.
Yeah, for sure. And it almost felt like a sense of destiny's too strong of a word, but there was definitely this resignation of, the good guys for the Spurs got hurt. Like that's, I guess that just wasn't for them this year, and certainly there are still some bright spots for the Spurs.
And you kind of have to question if this could have been their last run at making a championship. You're looking at Ginobili possibly retiring, Parker's getting up there. Who knows, he could possibly retire, and then you look at Gasol and Aldridge. They've been inconsistent. I know I mentioned this to Baxter earlier on the Morning Brew, but those are things you have to look at for the Spurs. I mean, they're going to be competitive. We know that with their young talent, but it could be a while before they get to a conference finals again.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, you look at some young guys they have, like Jonathan Simmons showed out in the playoffs this year. Kawhi obviously is Kawhi. They might have something in Dejounte Murray, who played relatively well, given, he was a rookie in the playoffs against some of the best teams in the league. The Spurs have a historically very good eye for picking young guys, picking kind of maybe unheralded players. So there could still be a foundation there, but that foundation sounds like it's going to be a couple more years into the future rather than unless they can reload and pick up another Aldridge type player for next year and try to retool.
Yeah, and I saw a crazy thing on ESPN today that talked about possible real or fake news for free agency, and one of them was about Chris Paul, and they said that he could possibly go to the Spurs this summer.
Yeah. There's been a lot of talk about Chris Paul maybe deciding to leave the Clippers, and the Spurs have definitely been mentioned as a destination, and that would be a heck of a pickup, if Tony Parker is going to call it quits. Let's just get another generationally great point guard and keep rolling. That sounds like a pretty Spurs move to me.
Yeah, absolutely.
And again, talking about the dominant Warriors, but is there a realistic worry for the Warriors, even when they get into the finals? Presuming, of course, that they end up facing the Cavaliers, or are they just seriously too good?
They're really good. I think the one worry that shouldn't happen this year would be Draymond Green getting suspended. And
that's true. That's always
first clinching game, because I felt like if he plays that game, they were dominating that game for a while. They definitely could have won that game in 5. They could have won that series in 5.
Yeah. But then, of course, Draymond puts his legs where legs shouldn't go, and we all know how it played out. So, I mean, but less hilariously.
And yes, other things did happen in that series, like Bogut getting injured too.
That's true, but that speaks to the point that maybe the only thing they really have to worry about is some sort of self-implosion. If the Warriors are at full strength and not falling apart or actively fighting each other on the court, it's pretty hard to see a scenario where they don't at least win in the finals. I'm hoping it'll be more competitive than.
I don't want a double figure win every game.
You don't want to see the 16-0.
That would be an awesome
run.
feat to see.
It would be kind of amazing.
If they're all competitive games, I'd be okay with it. If they're all the way the Warriors have been playing,
then it's just a boring cap off to a boring playoffs.
Exactly.
I could see that. Speaking of the other series still going on, thanks in part to a some would call it miraculous win by the Boston Celtics the other night. The Cavaliers still leading the Celtics 2-1. Neither team has won on their home floor yet, weirdly enough, in this series. The Cavaliers obviously took 2 games in Boston, and now the Celtics have taken a game in Cleveland. But what was your take on Game 3? Was that just like a weird fluke? I mean, obviously LeBron didn't play well.
Yeah.
And Marcus Smart played very well. But is that something that they can sustain, especially now that Isaiah Thomas is out for the rest of the playoffs?
I feel like they're definitely. I'm not counting the Celtics out, but I think the injury to Isaiah Thomas will definitely motivate them. I mean, you look at
I can see that.
look at Marcus Smart, guy struggles shooting the 3-ball, and he hits 7 threes out of nowhere.
Yeah, really.
Just
Remarkable and unexpected. So I have this thing with Marcus Smart, and it's kind of
I
gone
saw your
back
Twitter,
to
Mitch.
yeah. You're keeping an eye on that. But I have this thing with Marcus Smart going back to when he was drafted the same year as Jabari Parker. He was one of the guys I was draft profiling for Bucksketball when I was writing for them. And yeah, I could never figure out what Marcus Smart was about when he was a draft prospect, and I still can't figure out what Marcus Smart is about, because any given night he is liable to just be crazy and draw, foul a bunch of dudes and foul out and play terribly. But every couple of weeks he just has this one game where he finds a shooting stroke, 20, 25 points, a bunch of rebounds, bunch of assists. I see people comparing him to like the guard version of Draymond Green. And this is really weird. I can't. He's not a guy that I would like pay money to.
Yeah.
Like,
and you look at the situation with him right now, he kind of has to play like this, because you look at they have the number 1 pick. They're either going to take Markelle Fultz or Lonzo Ball, which means he could lose some more playing time if they end up keeping Avery Bradley.
Yeah, that's true. And they're going to have to sort out some things. This being a guard-heavy draft and the Celtics being a guard-heavy team. They're going to have to sort some things out. It may be in a year or two. I think they've still got some time with their current stars, and before a guy like Fultz or Ball is really going to be a star. I do want to. David is down in the comments reminding me. We talked a little bit about Brad Stevens last week. I believe when Jimmy and I were talking about which series could be competitive, and David is reminding me that Brad Stevens still draws some pretty good out of bounds plays. I do have to agree after that the play to get Avery Bradley a 3-pointer to win the game in Game 3 was very well executed. Brad Stevens has a reputation for that, and he was one of the reasons I said they could steal a game or two. So I don't want to pat myself on the back, but
who would have thought they would steal a game on their home court, on Cleveland's home court?
Oh yeah. That was the thing for me. I thought, maybe they'll take Game 2, or if they do make it back to Boston. If they're going to take a game, it's going to be on their home court. But to see them walk into the queue and just not be intimidated really at all. I mean, they got down early, but just came back and kept everything together, even in the face of a Cavaliers team that, even when LeBron was having a bad day, still had Kevin Love playing well, still had Kyrie playing very well.
Yeah, so it's going to be important to hope. They're going to have to hope that LeBron doesn't score in the fourth quarter the rest of the series. Although it's only happened, this was only the second time that it's happened in his career.
Yeah, and that was, obviously, you guys going to have a bad night. LeBron had a particularly bad night, one of his worst in was 3 or 4 years. I don't remember exactly.
2000, I think his first year with Miami.
Yeah, where he scored 11 points in this game, had scored 7 points in his previous playoff worst. Yeah. But what are we going to see out of LeBron in Game 4 tonight? I mean, is he going to take umbrage with all the comments that have sprung up in the last couple of days about him?
I feel like this is going to be one of those Game 6 versus Boston moments that he had with Miami, where he just goes off for 45 points, 12 rebounds, 10 assists, while Kevin Love and Kyrie Irving put up good numbers.
Where Kevin Love makes 6 threes and Kyrie has 10 assists. And yeah, I mean, what was I going to say?
I took the words out of your mouth, Mitch.
Yeah, you read my mind, Ian. I was actually going to say I very much expect that we're going to get him back to one of the stat lines he was having earlier in the postseason. A 35, 8 and 7 or something crazy like that. And yeah, it's especially considering some of the comments we saw from LeBron after Game 3, getting a little chippy with some reporters, getting a little admitting that he played poorly, but also getting a little defensive about it. I think we're going to see an extra motivated LeBron. And
it should be serious if J.R. Smith is saying something about
it. Oh,
it.
yeah. Noted truth teller J.R. Smith is speaking truth to power here. So,
have you guys heard that the point total for LeBron James, the over/under set at 35? Do you think that
for Game 4?
For Game 4, do you think?
Oh, wow.
What do you take from that?
I think the people in Vegas have kind of the same idea we do.
Yeah.
That he's going to be pretty motivated.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, sorry, producer Baxter just stepping in here to give us some gambling lines. Could you just keep doing that for like the whole show? Just find the gambling lines or whatever we're talking about and pop in with that. I really like that feature.
I'm happy to do that.
Excellent. Speaking of things you could theoretically gamble on, but I wouldn't recommend it. Shortly after our show last week, the All-NBA Teams and award finalists for this year's NBA awards were released, and they've gone to a kind of a system that I'm not a big fan of. Let's say with the awards where they get announced in May, or the finalists get announced in May, I should say, and then we get to wait all the way through May, all the way into June, till June 26th.
Yeah.
When the award winners are announced.
Where Drake gets to present the awards.
Yeah, where Drake gets up, talks about how much he loves Doris Burke, and then says, "Congratulations to you, James Harden. You are the MVP." But yeah, so there was a little bit of controversy, let's say, around the All-NBA teams, which were announced last week, particularly around guys like Paul George and Gordon Hayward, who have some contractual language that kicks in or doesn't, depending on them making All-NBA teams. And both missed it. But were they straight up snubs, or did they legitimately miss these teams because there were so many other great players?
It's a little bit of both, I would say. I think George was the one that I wasn't surprised that he didn't make an All-NBA team. Gordon Hayward, I was a little bit surprised with just with how well that Utah played this season. I mean, getting a 5th seed, going to the second round in the playoffs. And he put up some pretty good numbers in the postseason, too. So I was definitely surprised that he didn't make the 3rd team. I would probably put him 3rd. But
yeah.
Paul George, I
wasn't
wasn't really surprised with not making it, especially with the way his team bounced out of the playoffs.
Yeah, for sure. And it was, it was rough going for a little bit there for Paul George. It's a bummer that he's going to miss out on his 5-year Supermax deal for a little while at least, setting up Paul George going to run to the Lakers. But yeah, otherwise, and honestly, just looking at this list, obviously Harden, Westbrook, James, Kawhi Leonard, Anthony Davis on the first team. I don't really, those are all the guys you take. Maybe Anthony Davis and a guy like Rudy Gobert are the guys you would think of. Maybe you'd flip them on the first and second team. But otherwise, it's, these NBA teams look pretty good to me.
Yeah, looking at Draymond Green making the 3rd team, I saw during one of the playoff games that he actually got more first-place votes than Steph Curry and Kevin Durant.
Oh, weird.
Yeah, they said that Green got 3 first-place votes for first team, while Durant and Curry, I think, only got 1 each.
Yeah, and then they ended up, and they ended up on the second team, obviously. And
I've got more odds for you, by the way.
All right, man, I got to start bringing money to this. Let's just throw money on these things right now.
Cleveland is a 15-point favorite tonight against Boston. Agree or disagree?
I would agree with it.
Would you take the over on that?
I would take the over on 15. And this is tied very much, I think, to LeBron's point total, because if he comes out and just storms the court and says, "I'm taking this over," listen, get out of here. Yeah, they have the potential to blow out the Celtics team.
I think a lot of people are going to take the over, so I'm going to take the under.
Ooh, contrarian.
Just because I think the Celtics are going to compete, but LeBron's going to put up big numbers tonight, so it's going to be a push to see if they can hold them under a 15-point deficit. But
yeah, that's true. And if Boston can exploit that the Cavaliers' defense that Jimmy and I spoke about at length regarding switches and secret plans thereof, if they can continue to get good ball movement and shoot the 3 as well as they have, then we could just see a shootout tonight.
The real question, though, is who do you have in the Connecticut versus Minnesota WNBA game tonight?
Oh, man.
Minnesota's a 12.5-point favorite tonight.
I've heard good things about Minnesota this year.
Yeah, they're undefeated right now.
I went up to Minneapolis a couple weeks ago, and I've been converted to a lot of things Minnesota, so I am going to have to go with the Lynx tonight in the WNBA.
Take that. You're going to take the 12.5-point over?
I'll take it.
Sure, yeah. Let's take it. I'll drop a couple stacks on that.
There
That's
you
fine.
Go. What about New York and Phoenix? Phoenix is only a 1-point favorite. It's going to be a bar.
That's because
Ooh,
Tarazi got suspended, though, so that could be the key reason.
That could be why.
Ian had that one in his back pocket.
So let's go
Great.
with New York in that one.
Okay, all right. I'll follow you on that one. We're gonna go with New York.
Can you even name all the WNBA teams? I don't think I can.
I think there's only 12.
I still couldn't.
Let's see. There's San Antonio, Dallas, LA, Minnesota, Phoenix,
Okay.
Connecticut, Indiana, Chicago.
Oh wow.
I don't think I said New York.
We might have to go to tape on that one.
Yeah.
I think you might have, but yeah, no, that's hey man. Either way, that's more WNBA teams than I can list. That's a glaring weak spot in my vocabulary. So we're just gonna keep going back to stuff I said last week, but shout out to Michael who is making the very bold prediction that Kelly Olynyk is going to go off tonight, and if you like that over under. Michael's got Olynyk for 35 points and 12 boards tonight. # bold predictions.
Wait, 35 points and boards combined?
30.
Okay. Because I'm like, if those are combined, then I might take that.
Maybe. Nope. 35 points, 12 boards, 47 combined.
Okay.
That is the definition, Michael, of a bold prediction, and we will be holding you to that one. He also is picking the Celtics, obviously, if Kelly O'Bird is going to go off like that. That only makes sense.
To be fair to Michael, he hosts a podcast called Bold Predictions, so I mean.
Oh, okay. Oh, well,
Okay.
okay. That makes more sense
Yeah.
then.
He's used to making those hot takes.
Then he's living the gimmick in a way that I really appreciate.
Well done, Michael.
Well done. All right. As we get towards the end a little bit here, I do want to just touch on a couple things that have come up regarding the draft since last week. Obviously, the draft lottery happened. There was much celebrating in both Los Angeles and Philadelphia.
For somewhat. You look at Embiid during the draft ladder. He got so excited when he's like, "Oh my God, we could get 2 picks in the top
Yep,
3," and
yep. then they got one.
yeah.
But still, the third pick in this draft is certainly going to be interesting. Ian, you told me off the air before the show that you were actually watching the draft combine this
Yes.
weekend, which portends a thrilling rest of your weekend. But were there any guys at the combine or just in this draft in general that kind of stood out to you as like guys who might be a little bit undervalued right now?
Yeah, one of them was Frank Jackson. I know he only went there for 1 day, and he did so well. He got so much response back in that first day. He didn't even go back for the rest of the combine.
Hey, man.
I know, like that's
Ace one test and leave.
That's typically what a
my
lot
motto.
of those guys who are on the border do. If they get a lot of good things that they hear from those scouts during that first day,
they'll just say, "All
they're
right,
like,
that's good."
"Oh, I'm done." But looking at a guy who I thought tested really well, but I'm not sure if he should enter the draft, was the guy from Kentucky.
Hamidou Diallo.
Yes,
you mean?
that guy.
You've got WNBA names. I've got foreign NBA players. It's all going to work out.
Because they were showing off his vert, and he just went off on it.
Yeah, I am. If you do follow me on Twitter, you know that I am a noted proponent of #DraftHops.
Yes.
So I am. Ian confirms. So I'm all in. I love dudes. I loved Zach LaVine when he was coming out. I love dudes. I love guards that have 44-inch verticals because it's just fun. It's just a good time. So I would draft him if he was around. I think I've also said that if he ends up at around 17 and stays in the draft, I would be fine with the Bucks taking him for sure. I think he'd fit right in.
Yeah. But other than that, most of what I saw was just the scrimmages that went on during the combine. And it was definitely interesting to see how some of these players are changing their game or seeing some of the stuff that they did in college. But I don't know. We'll see what happens since the deadline to withdraw from the draft is tomorrow.
Yeah, for sure. We'll be seeing some decisions.
I got one thing for you.
Yeah,
I'm sorry.
all right.
I'm on.
All right,
I'm
Baxter, what's up?
I'm on a website right now, Roto Grinders, like Roto World and all that fun business.
Yeah.
They have projections this evening for some of the players, obviously for Boston and Cleveland.
Oh boy.
They have the absolute maximum that they predict that LeBron James could score tonight from points. They think the max he could score tonight is 68 points. They think the minimum that he might score tonight is 41. Agree or disagree?
Whoa. Okay. Listen, guys. I like LeBron James as much as the next guy. Like, let me just get that out there right now. But 41 minimum?
He's got to make up for not scoring in the fourth quarter.
I guess, if he's going to keep that average up, he's averaging like 35, so he needs to I don't do math very good, but that's probably 50 or something, right?
I can blow your mind a little bit more.
Oh,
they predict that
geez.
Kyrie Irving could get a maximum of 53 points and a minimum of 24.
Okay. I mean, I'd love to see a Kyrie blow-up game. I don't know if it's going to happen, but...
Kevin Love predicted for 46 max, 27 minimum.
Wow, that's...
27 minimum for Kevin?
That's... I mean, listen, these guys probably have some kind of math that I don't know about.
Probably.
But that all seems pretty high. I will come on the show next week and apologize to Roto Grinders if they get this right, but I'm not.
Do they have the predictions for Dante Jones?
How many opponents is he going to kick? That's the only thing I need. 0 points, 2 kicks. Done.
Dante Jones even playing?
I remember the last game.
He has gotten some minutes.
Last game, I remember him playing in. He got in, got a dunk, and I'm pretty sure he got ejected right after that.
Yes, you're correct. I remember seeing that. Listen, 2017 Dante Jones plays basketball the same way I would if I could dunk.
Kelly Olynyk's ceiling
is
25 points, by the way, for Kelly Olynyk.
All right. Well, Michael, you know.
Minimum of 10.
Yeah, I mean, that's plausible. I can see that. Well, with that, I do want to circle back to the draft just real quick to say, I was telling these guys off the air, but if you have a draft pick between 11 and 19 in this draft, I'm feeling a little bit bummed out for you because you have your choice of 7 different 6'11", 220-pound power forwards that all look like John Henson to me. So, sorry, man. Maybe trade yourself back. There are some interesting guys. I like guys in the 20 to 30 range way more than I like them in the 10 to 20, which is weird. But if you can get a guy like, Terrence Ferguson, who had a weird journey through Australia coming out, I super like him a lot. Jonathan Gian from, I forget exactly where he was from, but playing overseas, super tall, maybe the next Rudy Gobert.
I think he's from France.
He is from France. Yes, that is correct. So, hey, listen. But yeah, I feel bad for everybody.
Imagine if Utah drafted him in the first round and they just got 2
super twin towers. Oh man, that would be great. And we will let's ponder on that as we watch tonight's game. The Cavaliers and the Celtics, obviously, Game 4 tonight. Keep an eye on that. See if any of our Roto Grinders, Michael Biermeister, your and I's, Vegas's, any of these predictions come through. Feel free to either praise or berate me on Twitter if I got it right or wrong. But we are going to wrap up the show today. This has been the Double Dribble Show, of course, here on Brew Sports Net. Find all of our great content on Facebook here, where you're probably watching this now. You can find our videos on YouTube, Spreaker.com. We have a couple pretty interesting articles coming up both today and tomorrow on the website, brewsportsnet.com. You can certainly find our work there. I believe, Ian, you're going to have an MLB article for us coming up.
Yes, I can talk about baseball, not just basketball or football.
You are the 5-tool player in our hearts, Ian. Really great.
He's the real MVP.
He is the real MVP. And I do want to thank you so much for coming on today.
Yeah,
where can the people find you on the internet, apart from on our illustrious website?
You can find me on Twitter, Ian DeMars, or at sportsdude_603. If you want to take a look at my Instagram, I believe it's Ian the Watchdog _75.
Excellent. And as always, you can find me on Twitter at Mitch Vomhoff. You can find my work occasionally on the website. If you'd like to, if you want to find me on the internet, you could probably find my old basketball articles if you wanted to. Just put in Mitch Vomhoff on the internet. You'll find it. You'll find my MySpace page. Don't look at that. It's embarrassing. But with that, we are going to wrap it up. Thanks again to Ian for co-hosting with me. Shout out to Jimmy. Hope he's feeling better next week. Shout out to Baxter, the producer. As always, holding it down, giving us the best odds. And that's going to do it for the Double Dribble Show here on the Brew Sports Network. Catch you next week.
3, 1.